Hello.
Hi.
First, you're first. I'm very impressed. You even beat me to my own meeting. Well done.
Thank you.
We'll give folks a couple minutes or a minute.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Looks like people are trickling in. Okay. Perhaps it's a nice small group. That would be lovely. Thanks for coming. My name's Julietta Rechiga, and as you learned, I'm one of the counselors. And I also am an alum. I graduated in 93. So if anyone's great at math, they can shout out my age. And I'm also an O'Dowd mother. So I have a freshman there. So it's wonderful to meet with you and to talk with you about how we support students with learning differences. And just a little bit about me. It's been my work for practically all of my professional life. I've worked in a variety of capacities at specialized schools that serve students with language-based learning disabilities, teacher, admissions, college counseling, administrator. I returned to California to nest and be close to my family and was part of the RASCOB community and helped open Bay Hill High School. So it's been a pleasure to return to my high school, and I've been at O'Dowd for 6 years now. So I'll speak just a bit about the work that we do here. As you can tell from what my colleague Catherine Harris shared, it's very much a team approach here. So we have three dedicated full-time folks who work in academic support. I am the designated counselor for students with learning differences in ADHD, and I work very closely with my students, teachers, families, to ensure that your experience at O'Dowd is one that's very, very meaningful for you, that I support you in the growth of your advocacy, that you become more self-aware, develop a more nuanced sense of your many strengths, and also develop compensatory strategies and compassion and humor for some of those areas of weakness, which of course we all have. So in terms of just some questions that typically come up, I think I'll try my best to hit them and then open it up to Q&A. And if you have questions that come up as I'm speaking, feel free to pop them in the chat box. Okay. So who do I work with? I work with all students who disclose that they have a learning difference or ADHD while at O'Dowd, but I have a designated caseload. So students that I work with are those that disclose during the admissions process that they have a learning difference or ADHD, and they do that by including that information in the application. Many students would like to have extended time on the high school placement test, and that is also triggered through parts of the application and the submission of documentation. So documentation can be, a variety of things. It can be the current IEP, a recent psychoeducational evaluation, a neuropsych, a school-based plan. And please know that everyone is fully aware of perhaps there being a bit of a delay in updating assessment, especially as it relates to COVID. I want to be flexible with you. So ideally we're looking at 3 years to 5 years, but if you have specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and I can also provide referrals. I work, about 180 students have educational care plans. That's the language we use at O'Dowd. It's the equivalent of a 504 at a public school, an accommodations plan at a private or parochial school, and it has relative strengths, areas of relative weakness, approved accommodations, and some recommendations. And so before you even start high school, I'm working with you. So I invite you and your families to meet with me. I review, all the information that's shared with me through the admissions process, and then it's very important that that exchange of information and that that interview. And so what I'm really trying to do also is get a baseline where advocacy is, executive functioning. I really want to be thoughtful about you having a great sequence of classes, a great schedule for freshman year, making some adjustments. I have more discretion as it relates to scheduling with who I work with. And then we together draft that plan that I share with all of your teachers. And so that happens before freshman year starts. And at that meeting too, we're talking about which of the academic support programs would be great to put in place right away, right? So I probably a lot of the adults on this Zoom agree it's better to line them up and then peel them away as opposed to wait, find out you need them, and then try to triage them. I see some nodding. Yeah, right. So I do a big push for that, and my students have priority registration in these supports that are available to all O'Dowd students. And I say that because that's really part of our culture, right? Of supporting students, of students accessing that, whether it's office hours, academic support programs, peer tutoring, or close collaboration, and seeking out support from the counselor. So in terms of accommodations we offer, you could probably sort of anticipate some of them, right? So testing accommodations, 50% extended time. We have assistive technology. I have a school account for Learning Ally. We're a one-on-one laptop program. So we really want to help you kind of harness the built-in kind of powers of whether you have a PC or a Mac, as well as we don't necessarily provide, or we don't provide the software, but I can also make recommendations for programs that would be also helpful for you. We have additional flexibility with deadlines. So late policies do apply, but we definitely have teachers who provide additional flexibility and when requested extensions if that's important. And of course, preferential seating, strategic seating in the classroom. So some accommodations that we're not able to offer are oral assessments. We don't modify work, meaning that if the expectation is that the student write a 5-paragraph essay, it is going to be a 5-paragraph essay. So we're not going to shorten or reduce what is covered, what is assessed. And that has a lot to do with implications also at the college level. High schools that modify need to make that notation on a transcript, and it can be limiting in terms of post-secondary options. So those are some accommodations that we're not able to offer. And then I also wanted to share a couple very supportive programs, or I shouldn't say classes that we offer at the freshman level. So we have, and it's based on performance on the high school placement test, but we recognize some students would benefit from shoring up some foundational skills in math as well as the language arts. So we have some students, again, it's more tied to high school. It is tied to high school placement tests, not profile, who will do a math flex for Algebra 1 in addition to be enrolled in the Algebra 1 class. So we're doubling the instructional minutes and really providing a great deal more instruction, again, in that just this freshman year in the area of math. We do not offer this for geometry or Algebra 2. And then we also do something similar for language arts with an English class that, again, is mostly focused on the development of written language writing skills, as well as reading comprehension. And let me look at my little note card. Okay, so in terms of just kind of monitoring students, we use both Schoology and PowerSchool. So Schoology is our learning management platform where everything is posted, and the handouts are there, the syllabus, the assignments, the homework is posted there. And then we also have PowerSchool, which is more of the online gradebook, which really allows parents, student, and me to run reports and sort of look for trends and successes and celebrate those, and also look at maybe where we need to put in some more support and kind of do an intervention. So I covered, again, just some real kind of broad, usual popular kind of topics. And I think right now, maybe I'd like to open it up to questions. So again, I'm pretty casual. You can unmute yourself and kind of put it out there. You can pop them in the chat box.
Hi. We're curious to learn more about the time management and organization class or session. Can you tell us just a little bit more about how that works and who gets into it and how it unfolds?
Absolutely,
Thanks.
absolutely. So we have a program called Dragon Success, which was referenced. It's for kind of the scattered kid. Pretty much that's the bulk of freshmen, at least mine is like that. So it's a weekly 1 hour session in a small group format with a faculty coach. And so really at the beginning of the year, if you're when you work with me, I would really kind of dig into that executive functioning skill set, in task initiation, tracking assignments, even some of those skills like, note taking. And then if we feel like it's a real strong recommend, I will flag the kid, and then the student and family would get an invitation to enroll. It's just really lining up and signing up. Freshman year. We offer a smaller group of it for in the 10th grade. But it's really, we feel that most students, by the time they have kind of hit 10th grade, they become much more strategic. Additionally, in the 10th grade, if a student needs more support, that's where we kind of need to look at, kind of more partnering with teachers during office hours, or in some cases, a private referral for a one-on-one academic coach. We do not offer, outside of the counseling relationship, one-on-one academic support, with the exception of peer tutoring. It's small group. And we do something similar with content tutoring, with the SMART sessions, where a student might be in a Spanish 1 SMART session with a group of 5 or 6 students and one of our Spanish teachers. Yeah. Other questions? Oh, office hours. Teachers do offer office hours, and that's built into the schedule. There's also expectations before school and after school availability. And I can just speak to, and hopefully this is not applicable, but we have actually put it into the weekly structure during remote learning, this remote learning period as well, with a designated time Wednesday morning. Yes, teachers are available. Mm-hmm. What percentage of students have a learning difference? Well, I have about 180 students that have educational care plans at Bishop O'Dowd. The largest group would be students with ADHD and or learning differences. I also have students who have educational care plans for medical reasons, hearing impairment, visual impairment, as well as more psychiatric, reasons, depression, anxiety, for example. So gosh, again, I'm making everybody do math with my birth date and this, kind of in the teens percent of O'Dowd students benefit from an educational care plan.
So let me ask you, my son fits a couple of categories here. I guess the most important is he has bilateral hearing deficiency. And we actually live in San Leandro, but we send him to Oakland Unified School District because he gets much better special education to help. He has a hearing teacher who's followed him the whole way through. So do you have IEPs at Bishop O'Dowd, and what kind of services surround that?
Great question. So IEPs, IEPs are really kind of in the world of the public school system. Right. So I have students who have IEPs who continue to update their IEPs while at O'Dowd, and I definitely facilitate paperwork around that. In what I do though is I take the findings, mostly in the TRI, where the actual assessment comes from, and translate it to our internal document. So, I would actually, I would invite you to talk with me privately, more specifically about your son. But for example, in the public school system, they offer speech and language pathology. That does not happen. We don't have a speech pathologist doing push-in or pull-out, or, OT, occupational therapist. So perhaps, we could talk, in that invitation extends to, anyone who has very specific questions related to their awesome child. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the invitation. Perhaps the most beneficial part of having an IEP, or the annual meetings, right, where you meet with the teacher team and you sort of, let them know about
Yeah.
your student, and things come up like, well, he's got a hearing deficiency, but he's reading below grade level, and they say, well, he's not reading enough grade levels below below to right for us to provide any services. So
Right. So what
it's
it's true, like there needs to be in the public school system sort of like a substantial functional limitation in order to really kind of secure some of those accommodations and supports. There's some of what is offered in a public school we do not offer, but we also don't have any sort of barriers for any of our students to access, all these supports that are available to students. So yeah, I mean, I know that's sort of a general answer to the question, but email me, and we can talk, set up a call. Okay, I see some other stuff in the chat box. Okay, let me see. Oh, in terms of limiting the number of students from the application perspective, no. We don't have sort of like a set number. I do an initial read on all students who disclose that they have a learning difference. It's a comprehensive review. It's an admissions team, and so no, that's not the case. Oh, thanks, Karen, for the 11%. I like that. I've got an admissions person in the chat room. All right. Are teachers able to give assignments such as long English papers? Super good. Yes, we are. We are. So there are some academic rites of passage. For example, sophomore year, there's an animal project in biology where you get to choose an animal and study all of the systems of that animal and research and come up with a kind of a scientific poster or a website. It's kind of, there's always iterations every year. We have a junior term paper, and those would be like those two academic rites of passage, but there's a lot of literary analysis that happens, a lot of reflection happening in religion classes, research papers, and history. So, and we have a very structured writing curriculum that is explicitly taught, and so we really scaffold how kids learn how to write. Okay, so what is an educational plan based on? It's based on the information that you share with me. So whether that's a neuropsych, a psychoed, an ADHD evaluation, there is, the professionals who assess know what they're doing. And in terms of specific tests, that's not the case. We're not going to, if you share with us an eval, I'm not going to come back at you and saying, but it's missing this one little thing. Yeah. When is the high school placement test taken, and how long do you get accommodations for that is needed? Okay, so Karen, I don't know if you can, do you want to share any information about deadlines as it relates to submitting documentation?
Absolutely. So the high school placement test is going to be administered on January 9th online, and you can sign up for that test via the website. We ask that you get all your documentation in, and that means uploading your documentation to your admissions portal. So it can be your IEP, your 504, a recommendation letter from a neuropsych evaluation that says my child is granted extended time, and it's time and a half on the HSPT exam. So we ask that you submit that documentation by, I believe, January 2nd is the deadline, stating that you are allowed extended time, or perhaps some of you may need a calculator accommodation. We allow for all those accommodations as long as we see it in the documentation.
Okay. And I see, what about, oh, sorry. Oh, I think someone was raising their hand.
Yeah, no, just on this topic, what about reading questions aloud?
We have allowed that as well, and that would be something that would need to be stated as well in your documentation. But
And,
we have
and
had
who
parents,
was doing that? With someone at home with the student while they're taking the test, or?
we would have to, you show your screen on the online test. We did a pilot of this, for example. We did have one student who was being read, and the parent was sitting next to the student reading the question.
Okay.
So yeah, we'd need to document that, note your name, know that it's happening, and probably put most students with extended time into a separate breakout room for things
Right.
like that. But we'll be in touch with you and from the admissions perspective with all of that information. So you'll be guided through the process and you'll know how to do all of those steps. I know it can be a little anxiety provoking as you're going through this process for sure.
And
Okay.
there was a question about an audible version of the high school placement test. And I don't believe that's changed, Karen, that's not possible. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm seeing if I missed questions here.
Juliet, there was a question at the very beginning of the
Thank you,
chat.
Karen.
And then also if you could just kind of explain a little bit more about how teachers get to see the ECP plan, which is the educational care plan for our school, which is probably similar to the IEP or the 504, but teachers do see that. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the teacher
Sure.
view and the kid perspective there.
Absolutely. So it's drafted before the student starts, in the case of incoming freshmen, before school begins, and I share it with the teachers electronically. We have a wonderful seamless system in PowerSchool, which is the grade book that teachers use, where they have an ECP kind of management setting where they're able to bring up a list of their students who have accommodations. It is very user-friendly in the sense of, a nice visual indication of the approved accommodations, as well as with 2 clicks, the opening up of the plan. So we're paperless, and we should be about by now, right? And it's very accessible to teachers. And there's also an icon associated with the student in PowerSchool that is a wonderful visual reminder for teachers that the student is approved for accommodations and has an educational care plan. And I think, Karen, you said there was 2 questions. Can you help me with the other one?
Juliet, I'll help you with the chat. You're a solo team today. So
Yeah, thank you, Karen. You stepped up, so I'm making your work now.
I'm on your team, Juliet. I love you. By the way, I
Love you
have
too.
a son with learning differences who is a sophomore, and I just give a plug for Juliet that she's wonderful. I can call her as a neurotic mom and take my admissions hat off and say, he's not getting his homework done. He's really sliding in X class. And she's like, I'm on it. I'm going to get a Zoom session with him. Let's figure out what's going on.
And I say he's perfection, right? So
I'm glad I need that reminder. He is perfection. So it's really great to have a resource if you're admitted to O'Dowd with a learning difference. It's really the teachers are aware, Juliet's aware, and she really does try to help the kids self-advocate, and she'll help them figure out. And like at the beginning of the year, I love that you sat down with all the kids and you helped them craft an email to all of their teachers with you by their side, sharing like, these are my accommodations, make sure I get them. So I love that you're sitting there, but also helping them be their best advocates, which is really awesome.
Thanks for saying that, Karen. I know I mean, high school, I know it's crazy, right, to have your child be starting high school. But really, I look at the 4 years as we don't want to waste any time. Freshman year is really around building awareness, self-awareness, really flexing the advocacy muscle, having those authentic learning experiences that, a student has to go through themselves where they, go, aha, okay, like maybe I should have chunked my studying. Maybe that would have, that didn't go so well, and learning from it. It's that freshman year is really important for that. So I see in terms of concern about the student's score being low on the high school placement test due to low vision and the time accommodation. So that's why I really encourage families to upload documentation so that that high school placement test isn't that one standardized kind of bit of info that is part of the application process. I've been doing this for a couple of decades. I do not place an insane amount of emphasis on the standardized test scores at all. What we're trying to do is bring kind of the best applicant to committee. And so, it's very reasonable to interpret those scores in that light, and we would do that. A calculator, if you would like a calculator accommodation, that is also obviously something that we can put in place for the high school placement test. It's helpful for you to make note of that in terms of on the application, so that we can just, as we're monitoring, we know that the student is approved for that calculator accommodation. Yes.
Juliet, I wanted to add, someone wrote in about, do we limit the number of people that we admit, and we don't, of course we do. I think you answered that earlier. Maybe you misunderstood the question a little bit. So we of course apply, and then Juliet is doing a first read of all students who have learning differences, given her, time in the field and knowledge and wisdom. And then she brings those students to me and we have a long conversation, and then we bring those students to committee as well. So we're really giving a lot of thought into the kinds of students that we know will be successful at O'Dowd, given that students are moving from class to class, they're experiencing different kinds of teachers and different kinds of styles of teaching. The length of time that a student has had an LD and how they've been managing that over time. So a lot of really deep thought goes into the process, because we want to make sure that whoever is admitted, we can really serve. And so I would say on average about 40 out of the 300 plus freshmen are admitted with a learning difference. And it's really mild to moderate, because it's very difficult to make major accommodations. Major modifications, but we do accommodate in the classroom. So if that makes sense.
If I can, and just kind of clarify that too, when you're looking at high schools and determining fit, it's most important to really think about the educational fit from 8:30 to whatever the end time is, sort of, 3:15, how the class runs, what is taught, how the students demonstrate mastery. So, regardless of if that's not really a strong fit for you as a student or your son and daughter, the supports delivered before and after school, while important, while powerful, if they won't mediate the challenges experienced between 8:30 and 3:20 sufficiently, it really needs to be where it's just a good fit academically for the student.
Julia, there was a question about English and history support, and I wonder if you can talk about Damien's class, for example, for freshmen that maybe need a little extra writing support.
Sure, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but when I was talking about the double math, we have math class, Algebra 1, and then we also offer a math flex period, which is where students are enrolled in it in lieu of flex, which is sort of like a free period study period. They would get additional math instruction. We do something similar with English. So all freshmen are going to be taking English, and then some students who we feel would benefit again from strengthening foundational skills will be also enrolled in an English intensified class. And that's a class with a separate curriculum that dovetails beautifully with the English 9 curriculum, where the focus is really on writing and reading comprehension. And so some students participate in that class for the duration of their 9th grade year. Some students are exited from that support, kind of language arts support class mid-year. And that's based on the teacher recommendation and the student going like, yes, I'm with you. I agree. Let me pop out of that class and into an elective, for example, or a study hall.
I don't have any other questions in the chat, so maybe a couple more people might ask or show their hand.
Do I have any support groups or resources for ADHD individuals? So we do have some clubs on campus for students to voluntarily participate in. And so I think that probably be the best answer to the question. Several years ago, we had an I2I chapter. We currently do not have an I2I chapter now. And I would love to support students in creating new opportunities if they have an idea outside of the existing clubs. And then the director of academic support, there's a series of parent workshops that are offered throughout the year. I'll either kind of join and listen, or in some cases co-present. Yeah. You've been very well behaved, this group, I have to say, incredibly well behaved. All right, so I'm looking at the time, and we have the next session, which is equity and belonging, that starts in just a couple minutes. I'm not going to end this Zoom, but if you'd like to kind of transition to the next one, please do so. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and then I'll hang out here if anyone else wants to check in with me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really helpful.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you.
Okay.
I just have a question. How many people like work in the accommodations group or like LD group?
Super good question. So I'm the counselor. Okay. I'm that person on that team. And then we have the director of academic support. And then we have Mr. Barnes and Mr. McCord and Miss Woodworth. And they're all, there to help students too. So it's a team, but I'm the counselor. Yeah. I'm your liaison. Thanks for asking a question. I liked it.
So I have a question, if that's okay. Han, we were just wondering if there's any audio ability with the HSPT. I know that I'm the one who read to Hannah last time. So just wondered if that was a possibility, because it does take longer to read it. And anyway, that's.
I know. And, I think we'd need, I would encourage you to reach out to admissions on that. The high school placement test, it's once you get to O'Dowd, I'm definitely your answerer of questions. With that, I'm going to point you to admissions.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you.
I have a quick question about the language arts support class that you offer for 9th graders. Do they get to do their homework, or do they get support with their homework in that class, or it's just supplemental support in general?
It's actually its own curriculum. I mean, we're very, very serious about kind of getting in there and helping with skill development. So there's going to be assigned readings that are different than English, writing prompts. There is synchronicity between the two classes, but you get a grade in it. There's separate homework. It's lighter, but there's separate homework in that class. It's not like it's not an English support period. It's its own class. And you can ask, anything.
I have a question about the math support class. Does that continue after 9th grade, or is that just for 9th grade? Oh, okay.
That's for 9th grade. And I think part of the reason is that, we have geometry, right? That's the next class. And we have smart sessions, content tutoring in there. We're really trying to get that Algebra 1 super strong, because you're going to circle back junior year and do Algebra 2 trig. And then the schedule just gets to be pretty packed. Freshman year, we just have a little bit more playroom to put in these courses. And we feel that kids are really responsive during that freshman year. And we look at ways to support without changing the sequence of classes in the subsequent years, the 10th through 12th grade.
I have one more quick question, and I'm sure you touched on this, but how often are the kids meeting with you? Is that once a week generally?
So it's not once a week generally. So it's more of, so I work with about 140 students, and then I'm also a resource to students that are on other folks' caseloads and teachers. So what I try to do is, for a student that I feel it's very important for them to have a weekly point of contact, I'm linking them very thoughtfully with one of our academic supports that meets weekly. Okay, so for example, it could be that a student coming to O'Dowd would have a weekly Dragon Success session, maybe an English 1 smart session weekly. Maybe I hook them up with a peer tutor that they really dig, and they, maybe during office hours. So there's a weekly support happening, and then there are students that I'm seeing that regularly, but it's not all students, and it tends to be sort of like, I feel like, right, being a human's hard. And there's a couple times throughout high school where you need some extra counselor love, and I give it, and then I'm like, okay, and then I peel you off a little bit, and then maybe circle back. It's just more fluid than that, and there's a lot of caring. There's a lot of caring adults in the school. I keep my afternoons open. I'm pretty tired at the end of the day, so I don't love the parent meetings, because it's harder for me to come sound, I guess I don't know how I'm doing right now, but I like my morning meetings. So I leave my door open in the afternoon for drop-ins as well. Kids can drop in all the time, but afternoon I always keep open for the kids, because they're less morning people, mostly.
So do you offer counselor kicks in the butt in addition to counselor love?
Yeah, sure I can, but I mean, it's always kind of lovey anyway. I'll be like, okay, or I say, I love you, but I'm kicking you out. Yeah, no, of course. But once you have the relationship going, I'm pretty good at reading the kid, reading the room, and knowing what's needed. So, as much as I do that, I do a lot of trying to create compassion for themselves, right? I mean, some of the harshest voices are the ones that we have in our own heads. And I know a lot of my, a lot of times you work really, really hard, but sometimes the results aren't commensurate with the effort. So there's a lot of encouraging that I do, and a lot of, authentic, kind of specific praising that I do of, my sweet students. And I kick them in the butt sometimes. Yeah. All right.
To say thank you. You're so positive. It's wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to tell my freshman you said that, and we'll see what she says. Yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Nice group.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you, Henry. It's really nice meeting you.
It was great meeting you too.
What school do you go to?
Charles Armstrong.
Oh, that's a good school. So you know yourself well.
Yeah.
You want to go to O'Dowd?
I'm thinking about it. There's a lot of schools I'm considering. Bishop
Good.
O'Dowd looks great though.
Good. Yeah. Look, you be thoughtful. You pick where you belong. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Later. Bye.